Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Training Q&A number 1. All right, I'm excited for this. We've got 4 questions today to go through. We'll just go through the order that they come up first in the comments section on the video that I left last week asking for some questions. Again, whenever I get to that 500 sub feature, I'll stop making these, leave your questions type videos because I'll get that community post feature. So I'll be able to just leave it and say, hey guys, leave your questions in the comments sections here rather than make a little minute or 2 video, which is just, waste of an upload basically, right? But that's perfectly fine. And I'm not sure when it'll be doing the next one, but probably sometime in the early fall. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, let's jump right into it today. I'm outside enjoying some nature. It's a beautiful day here. So hopefully the weather's nice where you are too, and you are well. Let's jump into it. Okay, James asks, how would you recommend progressing stalled isolation exercises for hypertrophy when simply adding weight to the bar becomes unsustainable? For example, my reverse curls, his reverse curls, and behind the back finger curls have both stalled at about 18 kilos. And for the audience, if you're not used to working with kilos, 18 kilos is about 40 pounds. So that's a great question, James. And this actually reminded me of a topic I wanted to make a video about months ago and just never got around to it. A topic on making sustainable progressions, which is one of my upcoming lectures sometime later this month, maybe in a week or 2. So stay on the lookout for that, James, and the rest of you guys. That's going to be an epic video. Going to give you guys a lot of strategies to make long-term progress because just as James is saying here, sometimes just adding weight to the bar is sustainable, but it depends on how much weight you're trying to add and how soon, typically. But to address your question, regardless of the exercise, whether it's your reverse curls, finger curls, bench press, pull-ups, lat pull down, really any exercise, what you want to look at is amassing tonnage and increasing total volume with a given weight over time, and that's your ultimate driver of progress, more so than hitting a rep PR on a given exercise for a given session. And there's 2 problems I think that come into play depending on what your rep ranges are. Given that you're talking about isolations and that it's a reverse curl and a finger curl, I imagine you're doing pretty high reps, like 20 plus, maybe it's 25, 30 reps, and that's where you've stalled. Chances are when you're lifting something that's very light in that sense, like a high number of reps, 20 plus, or very low, like between, let's say, 3 and 10 reps, sometimes it can be difficult to see tangible progress because you're trying to add a rep too soon to that or add weight too soon. And so when you're dealing with exercises where there's a lot of burn, there's sort of this false indication that you've reached failure because it burns really bad and you can't keep going, right? It creates volitional failure. So if you find that you just don't have the strength to do another rep because it burns so bad and there's a lot of fatigue being produced, well, that could be why it is. So you might want to switch to actually a heavier weight for a more moderate rep range that's between, like, say 10 and 20 while doing some reps in reserve, especially if you're not a beginner anymore. James, what you're going to find is that isolation exercises in general take a while to increase weight. 2 that I've focused on really hard this year to increase are my regular supinated biceps curl, the dumbbell, and lateral raises. And James, it has taken me a while to go from competently doing 25-pound lateral raises to being able to do 30. It took multiple months of consistent thought and diligent effort, tracking all the reps, making sure that they're quality, getting rid of any momentum, right? So with your reverse curls, finger curls, make sure that you're not compensating with other parts of your body in order to add reps. So make sure it's honest reps. You can do paused reps. If you're doing really light reps, I would switch to actually a heavier weight and do a little bit more moderate, and you'll see rep to rep progression is easier, maybe not on a session-to-session basis, but every 2 sessions. If you're training it 2 times per week, or if you train it 3 times per week, again, wait till the third session, so that the week after, right? If it's the Monday is the first time doing it that week, wait till the following Monday before you try and hit a rep PR in a given set. But again, going back to what I said earlier, so if you're doing it with the 18 kilos, let's say you have 60 reps per session. What you want to do is get to the point where you can have like 70 to 80 reps with 18 kilos per session, and you can spread that out across as many sets as possible. And by the time you can handle like a 10-15% jump in a total volume with a given weight, you're probably ready to go up another weight. And sometimes you get to a weight and you do 10 reps, maybe it's the 20, 30 reps, and you're like, I just don't feel like I can handle more reps, I'm gonna stop. Well, just do more sets in order to increase that total volume. So look for ways to increase your tonnages. Maybe that's experimenting with different weights, but even if you stick to 18 kilos, just try and get more reps total throughout the session, regardless of how many reps it takes you. And also you can do a rest pause. So when you get to the end of your sets, give yourself a 10, 20, 30-second break, and then try and grind out a few more reps, okay? It really isn't too bad. And then just in general, if it's not just your isolation exercises, if it's all your exercises that are stalling, make sure that your calories and sleep are on point. That's about it. Don't overthink it. Just try and find some way of accumulating quality reps with that given weight before you move on. Good question though. Naomi asks, how long does muscle memory last? Is there possible data that shows it can be gone after a prolonged period of time? That's a super good question, and muscle memory is a video that I really should make an entire topic on. Probably a lot of the questions I'll get in the Q&A, I'll say that, and who knows if I get around to it in a while, depending on how many questions there are in the future ones. But yeah, I think that's a really important question, because something this was kind of like a common sense intuitive thing for a while, but in more recent years, scientific studies have demonstrated that when you train, there's an effect called nucleus overload. And no, it's not what nucleus overload training is. That's kind of a myth anyways. I've talked about that in a short. But basically nucleus overload is this mechanism where when you do resistance training for a period of time, you go through what's called myonuclear addition. So let's say biceps, for example, right? Let's say I train my biceps as a complete beginner. After 6 months of biceps training, in my actual muscle fibers themselves, there's more nuclei. The nuclei is kind of like the command center of a cell, right? And increasing the nuclei, what it's going to allow for is when I stop training, I retain the new nuclei. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure the specific mechanisms about that. Oh, there's a train going by, pardon me. You're going to build muscle faster the second time when you stop training. So one of the famous titles is something like a nuclei gained through nucleus overload are not lost on detraining, something like that. That's a famous title of one of the studies. It basically means that you can go months, years, probably even decades without training and retain some of your skills, right? But it's not just neurological, it's actually physiological on a muscular level. So you're gonna build back muscle the second time, faster the second time after you stop training. And to answer the second part of the question, Naomi, no, I actually haven't seen any evidence to suggest that there's a time limit. So it could be that you were in college and you worked your way up to 225 bench and then you stopped. Well, guess what? Even if it's been 10 years, you're in your 30s or maybe your 40s now, you're probably going to get back to a 225 bench in a shorter period of time than it took you the first time. So that's really exciting. And it's possible that the effects of nucleus overload / muscle memory, whatever you want to call it, it's possible that that's a more powerful effect than the effects of aging. And age and exercise is another topic I want to make a video about, but basically age is not really a good excuse not to exercise and say, oh, it's too late, I'm not going to build any muscle, but again, yeah, if you've worked out before and then you let yourself go, don't get discouraged, it'll come back with a vengeance. All right, Hit It Senpai. Is it possible to fix bad motor neuron recruitments for given exercise? And he says in brackets, normal barbell, machine exercises, etc. If so, how would you go about it? For example, left portion of my spine stays at a higher position compared to my right portion. That's a great question. Now, neurological stuff and like rehabbing nerve injuries, that is definitely a topic where there's a scarcity of information, and it's not something I have a ton of experience with, like working with clients who have nerve damage or they've been in a bad car accident, spinal injuries, things like that. But what I have seen a little bit is that with innervation, you want to be stimulating activities that work the damaged portion of your spine or nervous system. So if you have nerve damage, any gentle activities, maybe it's the hand and wrist, elbow down type of thing, anything that starts stimulating the coordination of the hand should hopefully help heal the nervous system of the hand long-term over time. Or maybe it's a neck injury from a car accident, doing things like, as silly as it sounds, singing and gargling, that forces little small fine motor type things that require coordination and really stimulate the nervous system. Now, I don't have really any evidence or experience to say how long it takes to rehab nerve damage, and I'm not even sure from your question if you have an obvious case of nerve damage. That's sort of what you're alluding to, but again, without knowing more about your situation, I can't give you like for sure, diagnosis or recommendations. But basically, if you have had a legit injury that you suspect or a doctor's told you is giving you nerve damage, try and do activities that innervate that part of the body, or at least that part of the spine down, right? But for your, let's say, barbell lifts, this is a great one. For squat and deadlift, what you could do is you could take like a stick of some kind, whether that's a broomstick or whatever, and put it in one hand up and one hand down below your back, and basically get it in line with your spine, and practice your squats and deadlifts doing a proper hip hinge, trying to hit depth, getting your butt below parallel. And what that's going to force you to do is just sort of brace and stabilize and just go slow, stay tight, maybe do bouts of these for 10 to 20 reps and do a few sets. You can do this at the start of your squat day or deadlift day, and that's just going to get you thinking about body position, because maybe there's some feedback that you can't realize what's going on, because certain deficiencies and compensations are involuntary or subconscious. So this is just going to get you thinking about different activities, like your core exercise. You're going to be just like stabilizing a lot. You're fighting into that stick. You're trying to get your spine to follow the stick and not bend to the side and fall forward, things like that. So that might just help you have a little bit better body awareness, and that might translate to less of this compensatory movement where your left side of your body is doing different things than your right. And then for bench press, if it's causing you to have issues of like being asymmetrical while bench pressing, I would say try a Larson press, where you don't have to worry about like your leg drive being symmetrical. And if your arch is having a problem where you're not being able to make a symmetrical back arch, I would try just doing a lower arch, just slightly puff your chest out. And so do a low back arch Larson press instead of a traditional competition bench, and then use the stick drills, and then just basic, go through your warm up over and over and over again. Think about every cue, the bracing, sticking the butt out, puffing the chest out, and just really become a stickler for technique in general. But otherwise, I don't have too many recommendations. Machines, you should be able to make up for it with just lighter weights in general. Machines basically do the technique for you. But otherwise, yeah, if you got some nerve damage, talk to your doctor or surgeon about that. I'm not an expert on that, but basically, yeah, get doing some extra practice and technique work. Hopefully it works itself out. All right, and the last question, YT asks, how to develop pure raw dummy strength to be able to easily manhandle people and have the strength to fight bears. What a great question. I love the internet. Okay, so in terms of just developing raw strength potential, you can't beat the tried and true classic stuff. So sure, we all like the Boogs, Eric Bugenhagen, doing stuff like Zercher squats and Zercher deadlifts and things like that. And those unorthodox things are fun. You look at them, you think, wow, that's a great way to develop pure raw dummy strength. But in reality, unorthodox things, even though they look cool, they're more like a test of strength. And that applies to strongman as well, right? Like picking up Atlas stones and log presses and stuff. Those guys have spent a lot of time doing the basics: squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, maybe push presses, things like that. So heavy compound movements, right? Prioritize recovery, get good at technique. You can't beat the compound movements for raw dummy strength. Weighted pull-ups as well, weighted dips. Those are all fantastic exercises. So you can't beat those. Barbell rows as well. Stick to the compounds. Work with some weighted calisthenics and barbells. That's a surefire way to get strong. And as far as manhandling people and fighting bears, well, you're probably going to want to get good at wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for defensive purposes. I'm not giving you advice to attack people. Don't misconstrue that. And with regards to fighting bears, first of all, you probably shouldn't fight a bear. And if you have to fight a bear in self-defense, you should probably have a gun, something big like a .44 Magnum to blow that sucker away. But yeah, look, if it comes down to hand-in-hand, I can't guarantee this, but the old, rear naked choke, pretty effective against men of all sizes, even if they look like a bear, right? So if you get around that thing's neck and choke it out, I don't know, maybe that would work. I've never fought a bear, never seen that technique used either. Maybe give it a try. But if you're gonna fight a bear, you're gonna need something to protect you against all the scratches and claws and bite marks. So maybe get some heavy leather jackets on, wear some furs, wear a ghillie suit, I don't know, Kevlar body armor perhaps. But in general, don't fight bears. If you have to, give me an old rear naked choke. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks so much for joining. It might be a month or two or even longer before I do the next training Q&A. We'll see where the channel's going. Lots of lectures and other videos should be coming out this month, so hope you guys enjoy those as well. Thanks for joining me today. Catch you later.